Okay, this is talk 19 in the Judgment Seat of Christ series. So what I'm going to do now is go on to look at some general points about the rewards that are going to be given out at the Judgment Seat of Christ, and zero in on this a little better and focus on it more closely. So we don't know exactly what the rewards are going to be, because they're spoken of in the Bible in general terms without much detail. At least I don't think there's much detail. There's far less detail than I wish there was. I'd like to have a much clearer description of each of these crowns and rewards and a much more precise definition and description of them than is given. But even so, we'll look at some of the references in the Bible to rewards and see what we can piece together to establish broad themes and principles which will help us. But one point that we can make, which is a general point, is if we are seeking for the praise of men now, then that will probably be the only reward we ever get. So this is a general point. If you are now, today, whilst alive on this earth, keen to receive the praise and recognition of other people, then that's profoundly wrong and is a big problem, because no further praise or reward will be given to you at the judgment seat. So if things are done with that objective, with that motive, for that purpose, that's a huge problem. So the things we do, insofar as we obey Jesus and honour him and are faithful to him and work for him and give for him and do things for him, our general policy should be to do it as quietly and unostentatiously as we can, not to make a song and dance about it. That doesn't mean we need to go around continuously sort of doing things in absolute secret. We just have to not make a song and dance. Don't seek to be seen. Don't seek to be known. Don't seek to be famous. Don't seek to be recognised, and so on. That should not be the objective. So can one of you read Matthew 6, 16 to 18?
Whenever you fast, do not put on a gloomy face as the hypocrites do, for they neglect their appearance so that they will be noticed by men when they are fasting. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that your fasting will not be noticed by men, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Okay,
so a general principle emerges from this, not only in relation to fasting, but anything. Don't do it to be seen. Don't do it to be noticed. Don't do it to be praised. Don't do it to be recognised on this earth. But you can and should do it to be praised, recognised and rewarded at the judgment seat. So the need not to have that motive now does not translate into the judgment seat. You can have that motive for the judgment seat. You can and should and are indeed commanded and advised to have that motive for the judgment seat. They're not the same thing. Different principles apply. So you are meant to seek to be honoured there. You are meant to seek to be rewarded there. You're meant to want it. You're meant to seek it. But you're not meant to seek it here. That's the point. And so what have we got? Broadly speaking, as a general principle in the church today, the exact opposite. A virtually complete failure to seek for these things at the judgment seat, and a widespread seeking of honour and glory now, and recognition and fame, and people wanting to be on the platform and be recognised. And have you ever seen the way that some people describe themselves in their books, on the back pages of their books and so on? They either write it themselves, or their agent does, or they permit someone to do it. But it would turn my stomach to write such things. You know, so-and-so is a magnificent speaker who scintillates his audiences and is continually sought for as a conference speaker, and is an amazing person whose teaching is transforming Europe and America today. You think, well, who wrote that? Probably himself. And you think, how did they do it? Why don't they just put, this is a book about such and such, a study of the book of Romans, focusing particularly on such and this and that. Do you see?
That won't sell books.
Well, that may not sell, but that's what Jesus would approve of. But I mean, that we laugh at that because that's extreme. But the things that extreme people do are just the very same that we can be doing, albeit at a smaller level. So we mustn't laugh too much at the people who do that, because we can be doing it. We can be wanting to be rewarded now by having everyone think well of us. And it's not that we don't want to go around having everyone think badly of us by poking everybody in the eye and making people think badly of us. No. But we're not to seek the approval of men now. And the point is, that's what we generally do. That's what most of us in the West are generally doing, seeking that now, not then. And we should reverse it. So, let's look at another passage, and then I'll explain this. This is from Matthew 10, 40 to 42. We're going to be reading out that passage.
He who receives you receives me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. He who receives a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward, and he who receives a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward. And whoever in the name of a disciple gives to one of these little ones even a cup of cold water to drink, truly I say to you, he shall not lose his reward.
Okay, so I want to focus upon another general principle, and it's what I call the principle of a prophet's reward, the principle of a righteous man's reward. So what's meant in this passage? I think what Jesus is getting at is that the reward that is going to be given to a prophet, to a righteous man, and so forth, whatever that is, the same can and will be given to you if you help said person in his ministry, in his work, and what he's doing. And the implication of it is that not only will the same kind of reward be given, but the same level of reward will be given. Now, this is quite a revolutionary way to think, because you could have a very famous person who's very well known for his ministry and such and whatever it might be. So I'm not knocking him. He might be a faithful person, but he's faithful and well known for it. And he's well known in being a teacher or leader or evangelist or whatever. And the point is, he'll receive a reward for it, a prophet's reward, a righteous man's reward. But you who help that man receive that same thing. Now that's extraordinary, isn't it? Because for a start, nobody knows that you're getting it. They might know about him, and they might have an inkling that he's going to get a reward, but most people wouldn't imagine that you'd get a reward for helping that man do what he does. But this is the way Jesus' economy works. His incentive scheme works to incentivize everybody at every level. So there isn't an incentive to be a great evangelist. There's an equal incentive to be the helper of a great evangelist. They're the same thing. So the person who helps the great evangelist by prayer, by giving, by administrative support, by other support, on the face of it, gets the same reward as he gets. Now, can you see how extraordinary that is? And how that ought to incentivize you? Because many will think, well, there's no point. I can't earn anything in the bank account in heaven because I'm not famous and I don't write books that I can put something on the back cover about. I'm not like that. I could never be anybody. Well, for anyone who thinks, well, I could never be anybody, this is the passage they should look at. Because what you can do is receive a prophet's reward. What you can do is receive a righteous man's reward. How do you get it? By helping them. Doing things for them. Even giving them a cup of cold water will receive a reward. That's the point. That ought to incentivize you. Okay. So let's look at some of these crowns that are spoken of in the Bible. What are they? Now again, the Bible doesn't give anything like as much detail as I'd like it to about what the crowns are and what different ones there are and why they're different. But it does give us some information, enough to be going on with. And there are two different Greek words for a crown. One is a diadem, which is the sort of crown worn by royalty. That's not the one that we're speaking of. The second type is a Stephanos, which means a crown given to a winner in a race or contest. Our equivalent of that would be an Olympic medal. Now that's what we're speaking of here by these crowns.
What's that called, Sean?
Stephanos, Stephanos.
Okay.
So that's the kind of crown that you give out at the Olympics to someone who's won the 400 metres hurdles or something like that. That's the crown he gets. It's not the crown that royalty wear. So the crown that we're being offered isn't a royal type of crown. It's a winner's crown. It's a victor's crown. It's an achievement crown, a success crown. That's what we're speaking of. And there are 5 different categories of crowns referred to in different places in the New Testament. Almost certainly, I imagine, there are many others that haven't been mentioned. And the very fact that so little is said about even these 5 causes me to think it's quite likely that there are others who aren't even mentioned at all, other types of crown. But at any rate, let's look at these 5 crowns and see what the Bible does say about them. Because I'd like all 5 on my head, and plenty more. I've got a head big enough to take as many as I can get. So number 1, the crown that will last forever. So, we're not told what this crown is. We're not entirely told what basis it will be awarded on. But we do know that it is to last forever. So it'll be there all through the millennium. So whoever gets this crown, it's written about in 1 Corinthians 9, whoever gets it is going to be wearing it through the millennium and on into eternity. Can you see then, if that is the case, how significant it is to get this crown, whatever it is? And the fact that you don't quite know what a crown that will last forever is, or how it will be, or what it will look like, or how it will work, or what significance it will have, why does that matter? The point is that you want it, don't you? Why are we worried about what we don't know? We should worry about what we do know. And what we do know is it'll last for eternity and that we want it. So the quality of being eternal is probably not unique to this specific type of crown. They might all be eternal. Perhaps some of them aren't. Maybe some are only for the millennium. I don't know. But probably, I suspect that many or most of them are for eternity. So let's read this passage from 1 Corinthians 9, 23 to 27.
Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize.
Yeah. So it would seem that this particular crown is given to those who exercise self-control, discipline themselves in their spiritual life, they're victorious in the tests they face, and they're not disqualified. At any rate, if it involves any more than that, it involves at least those things. Those are the ways that they get to it. That's how they get to receive that crown. But most of us, the truth is for most of us, we enjoy comfort. We don't want stress, difficulty or trials. Who actually wants stress, difficulty or trials? And but why do we not want stress, difficulty or trials when we're told over and over and over again that overcoming said stress, difficulties and trials is the principal means by which we gain a positive report at the judgment seat and the crowns and rewards that follow? You see? So if we're told that that's how you get them, why would you not want stress, difficulty and trials, persecution, problems and so forth? The only reason that you would not want those things is because you're living immediately in the present all the time and you're thinking only of the present. If you're thinking only of the present, then it would make sense to not want stress, difficulties and trials. But if you're thinking of eternity, it would not make sense to say, I want a life that contains no stress, difficulty or trial. Has anyone ever thought about this? Because I think most people spend most of their time hoping for, praying for an easy day with no stress, difficulty or trial. Who's ever said, well, Lord, today I'm up for it. I want some stress, some difficulty and some trials. Because today I'm up for gaining another 10 units in my heavenly bank account. I'm up for it today. Now, why do you laugh at that as if that's a silly thing to say? Because he's telling us that's how you get it, isn't it? So, if that's how you get it, don't you want it? Don't you want to do the thing that qualifies you to receive the crown? Well, you're not going to get a crown by having 365 easy days times 70. That's not going to get you anything much, is it? At any rate, not in this area, not when it comes to overcoming, which is such a huge theme.
I remember when I first became a Christian in my naivety, I thought I've arrived.
Yeah, that's right. It hasn't arrived, you've just started. Becoming a Christian is just is joining the army. It's starting. It's not arriving. Okay. But notice also what Paul says in this passage. It's quite a famous passage about not being disqualified. There's been much confusion about that, whether Paul is worried about being disqualified. I don't think he's talking about losing his eternal life, notwithstanding that I think it is possible to do that. I don't think he's talking about that here. I think what Paul's talking about is losing his rewards, is losing his inheritance, his crowns and treasures and so forth. He believes that there's a possibility that if he was to become unfaithful from then until his death, if from that point when he wrote this letter till his death he was to be unfaithful, he could lose some or all of what he had gained up until that point. You know what they say, when you invest in the stock market, the value of shares can go up and down. Well, I think that's what he's thinking of. He's worried that the value of shares can go up and down.
Is that verse 27 you referred to?
Verse 27.
It says, when I have preached to others, I myself should be cast away.
Should be what?
Lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway.
Yes, a castaway is the word used in the King James. I think you're reading from King James, aren't you? In RSV it says, be disqualified for the prize. I think that's the meaning of it. So, I don't think it means be denied a place in the kingdom, but be denied the crowns and inheritance that he would otherwise have had, or even that he had already accrued, had already gained. So, and he's also probably concerned about the future rewards, in the further rewards that he hasn't yet gained, that he wants to gain. He might lose those. He might lose his position or role in the kingdom. I think Paul wanted to be in the highest position that he could be given in the kingdom. And that's what everybody should want, to have the highest position they can get in the kingdom. Not in this world, but in the next. Because
Paul was in a very unique position, wasn't he? Because, I mean, he'd been to heaven.
He'd been there. He'd seen it.
Seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. But we are doing the exact opposite of what we should do. We are not seeking for a high position in the kingdom, but we are seeking for a high position here. And we should be not seeking for a high position here, but we should be seeking for a high position in the kingdom. And so, as with so many things in the Christian life, owing to the intervention of demons and false teaching and so forth, we tend to end up doing the direct opposite of what the Bible tells us to do. And that's not by coincidence. Because if things happened by coincidence, sometimes we do what the Bible said, and sometimes we do half of what it says, and sometimes we do the opposite. But consistently, we're led towards doing the opposite of what the Bible says. So one last one, the crown of exaltation. Let's look at this. It would seem that this particular crown is given to those who tell other people about the gospel so they can be saved. And it looks like it could be a reward for evangelism and for making disciples. And It seems that in some sense the crown that Paul is referring to here, the crown of exaltation, has something to do with the very people that Paul, Timothy and others had evangelized and disciples. So it makes me feel that perhaps when we reach the judgment seat, we'll find out the real extent of the effectiveness of our ministry and how many people we ultimately influenced, directly or indirectly. And it may be this crown will be determined by the number of people we've helped or to reach or to train, and also the extent of the effectiveness that they then have. So can we read 1 Thessalonians 2:17 to 20?
But we, brethren, having been taken away from you for a short while, in person, not in spirit, were all the more eager with great desire to see your face. For we wanted to come to you, I, Paul, more than once, and yet Satan hindered us. For who is our hope, or joy, or crown of exaltation? Is it not even you, in the presence of our Lord Jesus at his coming? For you are our glory and our joy.
Yes, so in this sense, it's almost as though these very people are going to be the thing that will adorn Paul one day. The very people that he's reaching out to will one day be, in some sense, a part of the reward that he's going to get. He's going to be recognized and rewarded for them. And so it's an incentive to evangelism. We have many incentives to evangelism, but that's one of them, to reach out to others. In some sense, at the end, we'll be recognized for who we've reached, how we reached them, how effectively they were, how effectively we discipled them, and so on. So, I think I'll stop there and carry on next time.